Good morning or good afternoon, or welcome to the replay if you're not here with us live. My name is Jody Parker, and this is the Million Mom Movement's Fierce Friday. So happy to have you all here with us today. The topic of today's Fierce Friday is starting your own personal garden, which I think is good for everyone. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the Million Mom Movement. There are 6 of us on the council. I am one of those. I'm joined today by Carmela Velarde and by our operation manager at corporate, Rachel Quayle, and the other 4 members of the council today, unfortunately, are in many different directions. We had some emergencies this morning. I was not slated to lead this today, so give me some grace if I stumble over myself a little bit, because I just found out I was doing this half an hour ago. Luckily, I'm pretty good at Zooms, but let me give you the history of the Million Mom Movement. It started, I want to say 5 years ago now, as an idea with our partner company, Purium, our superfood nutrition company, that we were going to find 1,000 moms in 100 cities to teach 10 families how to eat healthier. And that then morphed into not just eat healthier, but live healthier, which then morphed into not just live healthier, but live healthier while being able to take advantage of the economic empowerment that our partner company offers to us. And that has morphed to one step bigger. We are not just the Million Mom Movement, little MOM, we are the Million Mom Movement acronym MOM, for the movement of many. We invite anybody, moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles, caregivers, teachers, anybody out there in the community who is concerned with the state of the chemicals and toxicity in the world, with the state of our food and how it is grown in the world, anything that affects the ability to live healthy. We want you here with us. We are considered the activism arm of our superfood company, and we take that very, very seriously. Fierce Friday started just over a year ago. It was a small little half-hour Zoom where we were teaching people about glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup, and it causes a lot of health problems in people, and it is sprayed on roughly 80% of our food supply and is nearly impossible to avoid. So we started a letter campaign to General Mills, actually, because Cheerios, which is, so many children's first finger food, has the highest parts per million of glyphosate in it. And so we started by asking General Mills to take that out of our food, please. And it morphed into an hour long, and that has morphed into a petition that I'm going to ask somebody else to talk to you about just here in a moment. And that has morphed into Fierce Fridays. We are going to take the topics that matter to you and to matter to people in our community, and we're going to offer education and solutions. And so that's how today's Zoom came about, because we realize that the food supply is getting a little bit wonky. There are concerns right now after a year of the lockdowns on the supply chain, and so many other concerns that I won't go into because I'll get on a little soapbox, and none of you need that today. But really being able to know how to grow our own food is looking more and more like it's going to be key for all of us, especially in keeping us healthy. And so that's how this topic came around today. But before we jump into our expert panel, I would like to bring Rachel Quayle on to talk to you a little bit about the petition that we're doing to get glyphosate out of our food, and to talk about the scholarship opportunity that we here at the Million Mom Movement offer into the community to help lift others into this healthy living and economic empowerment. So Rachel, if you wouldn't mind hopping in now, we would love to have you pop on. I don't even see your name.
Hi, everybody. So a little bit about our scholarship. I'm sure you all have heard it before. Some of you might be new here, and there's been some major changes. So we, like Jody said, we started 5 years ago, and I think it's been going on 2 years, 2.5 maybe, for the scholarships. So we have, Amy and Dave have been very generous in giving away 4 scholarships every month, which included $2,500 in superfoods over the course of 6 months, which evened out to about $417 a month. So, and you get the business. So we have many of our scholarship recipients on today, and hi, Stefania, I see you there. And yeah, so it's been a wild ride, but we've made some major tweaks and fixes to the scholarship. We've made the application process a little bit more stringent. So now you have to upload a video, you have to meet with your upline prior to even applying. And with that, our applications have gone down a bit in numbers, but not in quality. So that being said, please, please, please share our scholarship. We have now changed it very much from the beginning of our journey here to now 3 months of $417 in superfoods. So that's quite a bit of a change, but we feel that with that, it might spark you to, you know, dig a little deeper and work harder on your business, because we've kind of evolved from it being a giveaway of superfoods to it being a business with the bonus of superfoods. So that being said, I think I've covered it all. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or the council. If you are a recipient and you need any support, the council is more than happy to, you know, walk you through any sort of step or help you through any hurdles that you may reach. Or you can reach out to myself and I can point you in the right direction. So back to you, Jody.
Awesome, Rachel. Thank you so much. So I'm going to just share my screen really briefly here with all of you to give you a little bit of information. We are easy to find all over the internet. This is the millionmommovement.info, and this comes up. Don't worry, your name and information does not go to anybody but us. But that scholarship is right here under outreach. And that is where you can apply, and all the who, whys, hows, all those details that Rachel was just discussing are all listed there. So you can see all about applying for our scholarship. And something else that I want to share with you today is our pledge, the Million Mom Movement Pledge. This is where you come to join the movement, and we send out emails with information. There are blogs here on our, you can see that recipes and blogs here under movement. But the pledge is right down here. And I would like everybody to read aloud with me as we go through this, because this is what we stand for. And I actually look forward to the future, because we have slightly changed the pledge, but it isn't public yet. I'm very excited to share that with you. But for today, the pledge: I pledge to defend the health of my family and of myself. I pledge to reject GMOs, artificial ingredients, trans fats, and overprocessed foods. I pledge to educate myself, read labels, and lead by example. I understand that my actions today will positively impact the health of future generations. I am committed to sharing this mission until we are a million moms movement of many strong. So that is one of the places that you can find us on social media. I'm going to stop this share. Carmela, do you have the petition handy, and can you hop on and talk about that for us first for one moment?
Sure. Thank you, Jody. So I did put it into the chat if you guys want to take a look at the box. It is there for you to click on and then save that on another web browser for you to sign in. But our petition is something that we are really proud of, because our chair, Stephanie Dawn, she saw the issues with Cheerios and General Mills, and she really wanted to do something about it. And as we are an activism movement, we get to create ways to really address the issues at hand. And why not? Glyphosate is our issue, and we have a solution for it. Right, we have the solution that is biometic, where 74% of the glyphosate can be detoxified from the gut microbiome within 6 weeks by just taking 2 in the morning and at night. So, and we do have it in our children's formula too, which is the Epigenius Kids, and the dog formula. So for General Mills to be spraying this continually as one of the first foods for children, this is alarming that it's still continuing to be done. So please sign our petition. I think we're over 70% to our goal. And what we're doing is we're locking arms in this movement of the Million Mom, because How many moms have used Cheerios as their first kid's food? I even have elders who are over the age of 70 and 80 years old eating this regularly. And glyphosate is not good on any plate for any age. And it does terrible damage to our gut microbiome, where it actually creates little holes, which is leaky gut microns that open into an autoimmune condition where our body attacks itself because of this chemical. So we're taking a stand, and we'd love for you to lock arms with us by signing the petition. Pass it to you, Jody.
Thank you so much. So you guys have all the information. We've been through it. At the end, I will remind you all the places that you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We have the website, and we also have a YouTube channel, which is where this recording will be later, should you decide to share it. So Million Mom Movement is the channel on YouTube, and you can find all the recordings of all the Fierce Fridays that we have done up on that channel. But let's move on to the whole point of today, which is starting your own personal garden. I see Shawnee Hunter and I see Amy Baker. I do not see Brian. Brian, are you on? If you are, please come on onto video so I can see you on my front page here. And if not, Shawnee and Amy, it might just be on you, and that's okay. But Amy, I'm going to start with you. So I know that you are in a warmer environment than I am, but can you hop on, tell us about yourself, tell us your experience and your passion around this.
Okay. Hi, guys. I want to tell you a little funny story. When y'all were talking about the Cheerios, I have this photo of two of my kids. They're only 13 months apart, two of them, and they were both toddlers, and it was a hurricane here in Florida. And they were standing at the screen door watching the great big, storms coming in. And so they were getting kind of wet, and they were both naked, and they were eating Cheerios. And so they're all kind of moist and wet from the storm. And then they spill their Cheerios, and then they roll in their Cheerios. So I have this photo of them completely covered head to toe in Cheerios, but I find that just very amusing now. But anyway, I am so excited to be here. Homesteading is definitely one of my biggest passions. I'm Amy Baker, and my husband and I have 6 children. We live on and created an organic farm, Green Grass Grows Farm, here in North Florida. And we raise chickens, ducks, geese, turkeys for eggs. We also raise rabbits, cows, a milking cow, sheep, horses, donkeys, pigs, cats, and 4 gigantic white livestock guardian dogs who we might hear. We have a garden, and we tend to our fruit trees. We countertop sprout. We make kombucha. We make sourdough. We do kefir ice cream, cultured sour cream, yogurt. That's just a few things we tend to do. But my teenage girls and I, we also really get into like making homemade body products and chapsticks and face scrubs and anything homesteading we love to do and make ourselves. We also grow herbs and make our own medicinal oils and use them for, bath, body sickness, all those fun things. And as you can see, I really, really don't like to purchase things from the store. So my new motto is, if I can't grow it and it doesn't come from a local organic farm, then it must come from Purium. That's all I buy, pretty much. There's a little like 5% of things that sneak in, but so that's my motto. Our animals are all fed as natural as possible and fed only organic supplements and hay. They are given free choice minerals, plus they get organic kelp and apple cider vinegar. But most importantly, they are rotated every single day. And this keeps the animals healthy, and it reduces their parasite load and keeps Mother Earth healthy. So no one area is, overwhelmed, just gently aerated and fertilized. And all of my animal families stay together for their entire life, and they're never force separated. So that's pretty cute. We use the animals for natural tilling, and of course the manure, lots of manure in the garden. We also make chicken tractors that you can put through your garden beds or up on raised beds, which is super awesome. Our gardening style is no-till. We do back to Eden, which pretty much just means that you don't dig down. You just keep putting, enriching materials on top. And I guess overall, we started all of this because my kids and I have chronic Lyme disease. And we knew we needed the most nutrient dense foods. And at the time, when we first started this, I was carnivore as well. We mostly ate meat. That's something I kind of dived into, and it was working. Not completely, but it really did work. I have switched to raw plant-based, but my family still eats organic meat. So it's kind of tricky doing meals and things like that at our house. But sorry, puppies. But yeah, I knew that, you know, we couldn't do factory farm. That would never happen here. And the animals have to be super healthy, happy protein. So when my kids are older, I do have to hope to have a small rescue farm and hopefully grow enough to do my own CSA. But yeah, I think that's
today you're here to teach us all how to do what you're doing.
Yeah,
but actually, at the elementary level, because everybody, this is the PhD level.
Well,
I'm the girl who's never grown something from seed. I go to the gardening place. I buy the plants already sprouted. I put them in the ground. So we need you and Shawnee to know some of us are like straight beginners. So Shawnee, I'd love for you to hop on and just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your experience. And then we're going to bring in, you know, the teaching of how to do what you guys are doing. So Shawnee, if you want to hop on and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Can everybody hear me? Just like to test out. Okay. So I'm Shawnee. I just recently bought a small 1 acre farm that, well, I'm turning it into a farm. It's a home and it's not yet a homestead, but I'm making the steps to make it. And as I'm doing that, I'm sharing it on YouTube. And I'm also writing a blog that are really easy how-to tips on how to create and grow a garden. And to do like everything that Amy said, like, you know, like everything that I'm doing here, I'm sharing. And so, so we live right outside of town, but it kind of has a country feel. And my motivation is to just try to inspire people that have like a regular house that is in town or suburban or in an apartment or anything to start growing food. And so I created a website where I can sell grow lights to help make an income and also help inspire people to grow and start food indoors. And some people don't even have the access to go out and like build a garden. So like I sell full spectrum grow lights so that you can actually grow all of your food indoors. And so that's and so I have chickens. I have 8 chickens, and I've got some 13 eggs in the incubator right now, and we have 6 1-month-old chickens. I've got a Great Pyrenees pup that's 5 months old, and I, of course, have my daughter. It's just me and her here. And I'm about to have a 69-year-old Lyme's disease lady. She has Lyme's disease, and I'm going to be caring for her, moving in because I have an RV spot. And so, you know, I have got cats, and my dream has always been to have a farm because my grandma had a farm and her name is Fairy. And so I named our farm Fairy Friendly Farm. And so that's our name, and that's who we are. And I've got really, you know, I'm excited to teach today and to be here today and to help everyone plant their own garden.
All right, so let's start with that. And since you're already off mute, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned the one thing that I think is going to apply to everybody on the Zoom today is starting those seeds indoors. Because I know I mentioned at the beginning of the Zoom before we started recording, I live in Colorado. It was a blizzard yesterday. We can't safely plant in the ground until after Mother's Day here. And in order to have a long growing season, you have to start the seeds long before that. So literally give us the how-tos. Where do you start? You know, the soil, starting the seed, what's the easiest thing to start with? So let's start with that. And then after you've answered, Amy, I want you to hop on and add your twist on that same question. So Shawnee, take it away.
Okay, so basically where I started was I ordered from Pure Pollination. It's a really great company. They have all heirloom, organic, non-GMO seeds, and it's for $35. You can get a bunch of seeds, and that's a great start. You get your seeds, and they have a really, really good book. I'm gonna see. Yeah, here it is. It's super, super simple. Like this book, it explains everything, like all the seeds that you get, has really easy pictures, and it tells you exactly what you need to do to germinate that seed. So when you get the seeds, you just read through that book. And what I did was I separated all of the seeds that said indoor growing and the outdoor growing. So I started with there was I don't know, so many indoor starts. It says recommended to start indoors. And I follow those instructions. A big tip is to get some soil that is not from outdoors already. You get organic topsoil, and you can buy a bag of it, and you get just your seed starting tray, and get a big bucket or a big container to put some of the soil in, and you moisten the soil first. And you're going to want to moisten the soil, and because that will help the germination rate be higher, because you're not pouring water onto the seed after you put it in the dirt. And so just to remind you, I have all of these how-tos step by steps on my website, and I'll put it on the chat what my website is. So you can go to my blog and you can see all the how-tos that are very clearly easy, super simple, easy to read and understand. But so once you get them and you follow the directions, you get them to a sunny place, like a south facing window. And if you don't have a south facing window, I highly recommend getting a grow light. You can get affordable grow lights on my website. You can get really high end. It depends on how much food you want to start with, because you really just want to pick the food that you're going to eat, and that your family is going to need for that season. And like I said, this book tells you the maturity date. And if you don't get these seeds, or you have your own seeds and you don't have this book, everything is super easy to find online. And you just research, and that's the basics of getting seeds started. And if for whatever reason the seeds aren't starting by the dirt way, there's a paper towel that you can wrap the seeds in, and you could a wet paper towel, and you wrap them in there, and you put it in a plastic bag, and you put it in a dark place for like a week or a couple days. You check them daily, really, and you see if they're starting to sprout. And if they're starting to sprout, you're going to want to then poke them in your wet soil, because you don't want to water on top of the seeds, because it kind of lessens the germination rate. And germination is when the seeds are popping through the dirt. So that's a little bit of an introduction on seed starting.
So Amy, you mentioned starting the seeds right there on the counter. So take what she just talked about the paper towel, etc., and expand on that, on starting it right there on your counter.
Well, for the counter method that I was talking about, that's pretty much for doing sprouts, just sprouts that you want to put in your salads, which that is also, it's a very cheap, healthy way to have good food for your family. It's to stretch money, but it's so simple because, and I really want to say every single thing about gardening is all online. Like I look up things like what seeds grow best in Florida? What time should I plant pumpkins? And it tells you everything, it's just, I think people get really overwhelmed, but just remember, it's actually really, really easy and everything's there for you. But for countertop sprouting, all you need is a mason jar, some cheesecloth, and a rubber band. That's it. You take, and you can look up, because every seed has a different time that it needs to soak. And then it has a different time of how long it takes to sprout. So you would just soak your seeds for whatever little chart you find says to soak your seeds.
So give us an example of an easy seed to start with, like alfalfa. Broccoli sprouts.
Broccoli seeds, yes, alfalfa. Those are super easy. I even do fun things like fenugreek, and you can do herbs, and all those are they're all pretty easy. But alfalfa and, those are good ones to start. But yeah, you just soak it, and then the next morning you put your little square of cheesecloth over your jar, put your little rubber band, and you drain it, and then you fill it back up, and you rinse it really well, and then you drain it again, and you let that sit. And the chart will usually tell you how many times you have to rinse it per day, but it's usually like 2 or 3. but it's just so easy. And I wanted to mention too, I didn't want to, repeat what Shawnee said, but there's also one of the things I love the best are the little seed starting trays that they are a little bit more expensive, but where they have the reservoir for water on the bottom. So then you just put the dirt down and then it just constantly soaks up the water. And that's so easy because then you hardly have to worry about it. Like once a week, just peek and make sure it has its water and they're happy. And they almost always come with a little greenhouse cover, which really helps. So, everybody stays warm. Here in Florida, I've tried to do indoor sprouts, probably where my house is and with the sun, or not indoor sprouts, but indoor seeds. I can't, they just don't grow here and I don't really need to. But I mean, even for people that just live in basic houses, if you don't have the right sun, get grow lights or get a small greenhouse. There are very small greenhouses that you can put outside that don't cost very much money at all. That's certainly an easy way to go.
So for everybody listening, I want to point out that grow thing that you were talking about, because the water is on the bottom of the tray, you water the tray instead of the dirt. And then the dirt soaks it up, and that is what is keeping your seeds from drowning.
And that's a natural way that the roots actually will pull water from the earth. So when you water them from the bottom, like Amy was saying, it'll create the plant to do what it naturally does anyways. And so it's a really good, thank you, Amy, for bringing that up, because having that, and then to also add to the dome, as soon as the green plants, start submerging up with the dome, because the dome is really good for helping them germinate. Although with the dome, if you keep the dome on too long, it could cause mold and mildew in there, which could harm the plant. So as soon as you see any green, what I found is just take that dome off and let it have the air, and it's done its germination. If you see one green, then they're all going to be poking up soon.
Okay, so let's go to the next step. So we've started our seeds, and there are certain things that are really easy to grow and some things that are not so easy to grow. So in my very limited experience, herbs were way easier for me than plants that took longer to grow. So let's start with, what are some easy, nutritious herbs that you can start with? And also I want to have you talk about, if they get too much sun, they go to seed too quickly. So talk about that balance of knowing when to harvest the herb. So like cilantro, you've got to cut the leaves off before it goes to flower, or else you end up with coriander. So talk about that balance of starting to grow it and when to harvest it. And either one of you just hop in, whoever wants to start first.
I was going to say, I think my two favorite, basil is for warm weather and cilantro for cooler weather. I'm pretty warm here, so my advice is going to be a little different. We are moving to Maine in 3 years, so I'll be learning a lot. But I did try to keep everything natural. That's how I do it personally. So when my cilantro wants to flower, I let it flower. I let it go, and then I collect the seeds and I save them. And for me, that's just the easiest way. With 6 kids, I just don't have time to worry about, oh, it's doing this, it's not doing that, it's not getting enough sun. So I just put it in lots of sun and put it in charge. So I'm not too helpful there.
Shawnee, do you have thoughts about that, about harvesting your herbs?
Yeah. So again, there are hundreds of herbs that you can grow, some easy ones, and it's really, what do you want? Because like you said, herbs really are easy, like chives, mint, like Amy said, basil, sage is really cooking sage is super easy to grow. And that's where you really, to be a gardener and to grow food, you really just have to put your science hat on and really just understand it's all an experiment, and you have the internet at your fingertips to really do the research. And I just recommend, instead of being like, oh, this is just too much and it's so overwhelming, I don't want to do anything, I recommend taking small steps and just trying things out, and then researching which plants you're growing, and it will tell you everything. Like mint is super easy and prolific, but mint will take over your garden. So you really don't want to put mint, you know, in a space where you're trying to grow like, well, I know that mint and marigolds go really good. Mint, marigolds, and basil, like that trio right there I've had in the past where it's just like, whoa, I love this trio. It's so nice, mint, marigold. But it's like you go out there and you just harvest. And if it's getting out of control, you just pull it. And honestly, gardening is a way that you can get into your own therapy, and it's a way that you can get inside of your own self and really trust your own ability to trust your own intuition, because it's a very intuitive, like plants are alive. Plants can feel our energies. We're giving them carbon dioxide. They're giving us oxygen. We have this symbiotic relationship. And I think just mentally opening up to that relationship with them, your intuition, like there's been so many times when I'll just tap into my intuition and I'll do something. And then later on, I'll do the research because I'm a scientist and I want to trust my intuition first. And I want to try to listen to my intuition and have faith that my intuition is smart. And then I'll do it. And then I'll look at it up and I'll be like, oh, that was exactly what I was supposed to do. Good job. You know, or sometimes I get it wrong and that's fine. I think just being gentle with yourself and understanding that it's a process to just take slowly and to just have confidence.
So let's talk about making sure the plants have the food that they need, because unlike Amy, most of us, and you as well, Shawnee, we don't have manure and we don't have animals walking around pushing it into the ground. Like that's not something that's happening in our lives. And there's so many fertilizers out there, and you know, we have to be careful of whether they're synthetic and what contaminants may be in them. And so what do you guys recommend when it comes to making sure the plants have the food and the nutrients they need through fertilizer and making sure that our soil is healthy?
Yeah.
Sorry,
go for it, Amy. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I personally wouldn't buy anything from the garden store. I mean, there's a few separate things. I wouldn't buy a blend. I would buy things like worm castings or kelp for the garden, or you can get seaweed. I would do things like that, or get a small composter outside your house and start putting all your garden scraps in there and making your own food. I would just keep it that simple. I personally don't trust most of those blends. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, for me, I think coffee grinds, saving my coffee grounds if you drink coffee, and coffee is really acidic, but diatomaceous earth, a food grade, will kind of balance out the coffee grinds and the coffee grounds and that. And then, you know, I buy this organic mushroom mix. It's like all organic compost mushrooms, and then I get cow manure. And you know, you can go to different farms and, you know, pick up, or you can even go to, if you're not in a space where you can't do your own composting or whatever, you can pick up composting, and if you don't have enough, I don't know, like I've gone to restaurants and asked for their composting and started my own composting. So yeah, food compost, coffee grounds mixed with diatomaceous earth, just sprinkling it on there. I'll do that. And then mushrooms and like kelp, like she said, is really good for your garden. It alkalines the seeds and it really helps them get that strong. I also, on my website, I did put it in the chat, it's growfoodandlove.com. If you go to my blog, there's a how to make your own it's a debugger. I'm having a brain.
You're welcome.
What is it?
You're welcome. See ya.
Oh. So it's not a fertilizer. It's a
pesticide, like to keep
pesticide, pest control. Yes, thank you. I was like, it's something. But yes, it's a pest control. It's a really easy how to make, and it's basically you're using grounded up garlic and onions, and you know, it's one that I got from this book here. This book here is The Family Garden Plan. It's by Melissa K. Norris. she's really good. She's got a lot of good tips here on how to plan for your garden and what you want to do. So those are good fertilizers, I guess, to round it up. Coffee grounds and diatomaceous earth food ground. That's kind of what I use.
I'll just hop in here because randomly we have a worm composter in our garage, and that's where we put all of our stuff, and it creates like a juice, and it's got like a little thing on it that we just, you know, drain it. And then I pour that on my food and on my roses. The roses really like that too. But that's something for those of you in a city, you can look up worm composters, and they're like 14 by 14, and they stack on each other, and they just take up a little room in your garage. And so that's a way that you can easily compost. And one other thing I'll throw in there with composting is a lot of people, it will say to use newspapers. You do not want to eat newspaper ink. So I would not recommend that because newspaper ink is super toxic. So you probably don't want that in your compost, FYI. All right, so we've talked about starting the seeds. We've talked about herbs and harvesting. We've talked about fertilizer. I kind of feel like I want to open it up for questions on what we've covered and for what other people want to know, because, you know, I don't need to run this whole thing. And so if you have, so the way that we've set this up, I don't think you can unmute yourselves. You might be able to. Rachel, do we know, can they unmute themselves? Because if not, you can raise your hand.
I just did.
Raise
okay.
their.
All right. Okay. You just did. So you can unmute yourself. So let's hop in popcorn style with the questions for them. And Glenneth has been saying in the chat that he's also an expert in permaculture. So Glenneth, if you have stuff that you want to drop into, we're happy to have your voice here with us today and drop some knowledge on us. So I'm going to hope that it just kind of flows, but if I need to step in and manage, I will do so. So who wants to start with the questions? Glenneth says, I do. So you go, man.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay. Yeah, one of the first things they talk about in permaculture is your soil. So it's always smart if you're doing this long term to do a soil test. You wouldn't necessarily put coffee grounds in your soil unless you had really, you know, needed more acidic soil. So there's a lot of details in really getting it right for what you want to plant anyhow. And then the other thought I had, one is compost tea is beautiful. If you know how to make compost tea or know about that, that's like magic to plants. It puts life in the soil, which is part of why our superfoods are so good, right? You know, but when you have really active life soil, guess what? Your plants are richer. So, and the other thing is just when you get ready to plant, looking up and paying attention to guilds, families of plants that work together. Some put stuff in the soil that helps the others. There's the Three Sisters thing that is the classic one. What is it? Corn, bean, I think beans and something else. But some attract beneficial insects or things that really help that particular plant. Some add stuff to the soil. Some give stuff to the soil, or some give stuff to the soil. Some, you know, take stuff that its family member adds to the soil. So there's a lot of intricacies that are worth at least paying attention to.
What would you recommend as far as you said we should test the soil? Do we go to a gardening center? Like, how do we, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. So where do you even begin with testing your soil? They
say that really the only accurate way is to actually send some samples to a lab. It's not too costly, but it can be really give you good information. I've tried some of these standard test things, and the feedback I've gotten is that most of those aren't really that accurate. I mean, I tested my soil. I live in a pine forest. It's real hard to grow here, you know, because the pine needles tend to make acidic soil. But I tested my soil and I was going, my God, I mean, I've been adding compost tea and doing a lot of things, but it showed around, you know, in the alkaline range. And I go, what? You know, So I don't know if what I did was accurate. It was one of these tests you can just buy online. And I hear that's the problem with most of them. So the best way is to actually take samples of the areas that you want to plant. And there can be a lot of microclimates, even in your yard, you know, of different soils. But the key spots that you want to plant, and put them in baggies or something, send them off to the lab, and they'll give you quite a breakdown of all the nutrients, because some plants want certain nutrients or other, you know, if you really want the best results, that's the ideal way to do it.
And I'm thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, are my experts, that if that's a challenge, I live in Colorado, we have clay. We have lots of clay here. My plants do better in containers. So if that's a concern, is container gardening, like the great big huge, I get those big ceramic pots. Is that a way, you know, because then you're getting the bagged soil that's already pre-prepared supposedly for growing in. Would you guys consider that a good solution? In making sure your soil is good? Is that a good place to start?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
I plant in my yard, but a lot of my pots, I mean, the best sunspot on my property happens to be on my deck. So there's not much choice there.
What I've done is I actually went to a local dirt and landscaper, and I ordered this. They had a bunch of mulch that they actually, or dirt that they delivered here, and it was $100. I got a huge truckload of dirt, and I covered it up, and I used that dirt for all my starts. And I plan on doing what Amy was talking about the no tilling, because especially for people that don't have good dirt like clay, or I know Georgia has clay. And so we literally created a garden by just adding in, and with clay, lime, using lime can help break it up. And so there's different kinds of things you can add to it if you want to till it up and use that dirt, or if you just want to throw like what I do is I just throw cardboard down or plastic, and I kill all those weeds before I even start gardening. And then, like, while I'm starting right now, actually, there's cardboard and plastic out on the ground, killing those weeds. And then I'm going to add the dirt on top of it, and I'll add like leaves from debris out in the forest. But like, if you're in a pine forest, you really don't want to do that, like, because then it's going to be too acidic-y. And which you would have to do your research on how to bring the alkaline up, like kelp, bringing in more kelp into that, or just trying to avoid the pine altogether. So yeah, just building it up, or doing pots, or even like you can get like wall hanging, or grab a pallet and turn a pallet. I think you just put a pallet on the ground. I think Sprouts and Start, or someone that was going to be on a panel, I think next week, he's going to talk about that, about how to just literally just get a free pallet, put some cardboard on the bottom, get a pallet, and then just throw your dirt in there and make rows. And that's a really super simple, easy way to start a garden, just building up.
So creating your gardens above your bad soil and putting the good soil in there and going with that. I see Kurt has a question. He has his hand raised. Kurt, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Hey, we have a small area, small backyard. Has anybody done any of the vertical planting? And as far as using the vertical planters?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want to go for it, Glenn?
Are there any recommendations for doing that?
Yeah, so with a vertical garden, I've had a lot of success with vertical gardening, and it's basically, you really just want to get like trellis, and then do your research on what grows with vines, or you can get a cow pen, like those fences that are cow pens. And what I did was I took a cow pen. Do you know what I'm talking about? One of those cow pen fences that's like about 8 feet long and 4 feet high. So you just basically, and you get 2 stakes or 4 stakes, what I did anyways, 2 stakes on this side, and then attach the cow pen on this side with like some zip ties, and then just take the cow pen, and it makes an arch. and you just have 2 stakes on the other side, and you can have an archway, and then you grow underneath, and you can build it up if you have bad soil. Like you can make a little base and you just build the soil up, or you work in the soil that if it's good soil, or add in nutrition like the compost and the worm composting and the kelp and the mushroom or whatever, you know, you feel you need to add to it. And then that's a good way. I just actually wrote a blog on vertical gardening as well. So if you check out the blog, it'll give you all of, I recommended all the plants that go well in vertical gardens, and also some small things you can look up that and research how to do that.
What is your blog name?
It's called Grow Food in Love. And it's that's .com, and you just click on the blog little subtitle, and it comes up with all kinds of like how to make chemical free cleaner, and you know, vertical gardening, and how to start onions and
what we might have you do, Shawnee, is give that to us through the council, and we'll put that up on the Million Mom Movement website so that people can find that information, so that they have one place to go and aren't going to 15 different places. We'll try and put this together with here's some book ideas and here's some blog ideas and all of that, so that it's all in one place for all of you. I think we have time for one more question. Mandy, you've got your hand raised if you want to come off of mute.
Yes, I'm curious, any tips or tricks to deter rabbits and deer? We have a lot of wildlife around our area. Using fencing and net isn't the most practical for our yard. So any other, you know, complementary plants that can help, or other ideas?
May I add to this?
We'd love, so Corky's going to be one of our guests next week as we're talking about furthering into taking our personal gardens into a community type setting. So Corky, to hop on in, we'd love to have you.
I was going to answer that about the deer and the rabbits. I was waiting to get in and talk. I'm going to try this year something that makes sense to me. Most of the deer repellents I've bought all have blood meal or dried blood or something like that in it, because the smell of rotting flesh scares the deer away. But that's not practical because it is always washing away. I was reading a bunch of stuff and I found out the easiest way, which I'm going to experiment if this other person would like to experiment as well, is use some cheap cologne. Some of that old Avon stuff you have in the closet, you know, whatever, because they say deer, when they smell the cologne, associate that with humans right away and won't get near it. So I'm going to try to set that up a couple different spots. I have a couple stakes. Drill a 1/2-inch hole in it and just pour some in that stake, and it'll just smell for I don't know how long to figure it out. But I'm going to try here and there to see if it does work.
I'd like to add to that too, whenever you're done.
I was going to say, you want to have a comment about this?
Just about the deer and the rabbit deter that I've tried in the past that really did work for us in North Carolina. Was like you said, they didn't like the cologne. We used Irish Spring soap and human hair out of our brush, and we just wrapped it around our garden. And honestly, like, I'm gonna be honest too, like I peed in a bucket and poured my pee around the garden, and once they smelled, and it was like it was just like, okay, I'm gonna pee in the bucket today and pour it around the garden. It was like part of my chore, and they did not mess with the rabbits, or the deer did not mess with our garden. And we had almost an acre full of sweet potatoes that they get every year. So that was at my old farm.
Easier than that, have your son or your husband do it. You don't have to worry about the bucket. I go out at nighttime.
Either one of those, so I had to pee in the bucket.
Ask your neighbor. Be friendly.
I don't mind.
All right,
anyway.
We are going to need to wrap up, but I'll add one more thing, Mandy. We have rabbits at our house, and I got really, 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 really hot cayenne pepper and sprinkled that on the plants, and they did not like that. The squirrels too. The squirrels come and steal my tomatoes. So I got the really hot cayenne pepper at the natural food store and sprinkled that on. They didn't like that either. But it is time. We're almost at the top of the hour, so it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for everything that's coming in here. And next week, Corky's joining us, and a few other experts are joining us to expand further on this topic, on creating the gardens and even working within your community as a community. I'm good at tomatoes and peppers and cilantro, so I'm going to help everybody make salsa. But my darn zucchini gets mold on it every year. So something's wrong with my soil, and I'm going to work on that. But the recording of this is going to be up on our YouTube channel, Million Mom Movement on YouTube. And that it usually takes about a day for us to get it up there onto the YouTube channel. You can find our website at millionmommovement.info. We will put a blog together about all of this week and next week for you guys to use as a resource and share out there with everybody. And you'll be able to share this recording as well. You can find us on Facebook at Million Mom Movement. That's our business page. All of our events are always posted to that page on Facebook. We also have a private group on Facebook, Million Mom Movement Official. You can ask to join that group. For those of you who are brand partners with Purium, that is a great place to practice going live for your PHP Live 2021. We would love to hear your voices in that group and for you to come in and share your knowledge. We're also on Instagram at Million Mom Movement and Twitter at Million Mom Movement. We'd love it when you tag us in your stories. Use the hashtag, well, you can tag us with @Million Mom Movement. Use the hashtags Million Mom Movement. We are the Million Mom Movement, and I am the Million Mom Movement. That is what Naeva, who is our social media coordinator, looks for. And if you tag us and hashtag us, she will reshare your stories on the Million Mom Movement stories, and that will help bring attention to you and your business. We want to help out to grow this community. We ask that you invite any and all people to Fierce Friday every week. We do this every Friday at 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern. It's always recorded and it's always open to the community, not just to brand partners. As we go forward, this month is going to be all about gardening. So next week, we're going to continue with this topic. The week after that, we're very pleased to have Cindy O'Mara, who is the producer of the movie What's with Wheat, and she is joining us, and so we're very excited for that. And then at the end of the month, we always have a business forward focus, and new Crown Eric Misch will be joining us at the end of March. So that's what our March looks like. And Carmela, Rachel, am I forgetting anything in my wrap up? What else do I need to tell them? They're both thinking like, I don't know, Jody, don't put me on the spot like this. So I think we're good. We still have 4 minutes left. It looks like, Andy, you have a question. So let's let you hop on and end this with a final question, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's actually not a question. I just wanted to make sure, and I typed it into the chat. My husband and I built a bunch of garden boxes out of pallets. You have to make sure they're heat treated, not chemically treated. And if you get them high enough, rabbits won't eat what they can't see. So I have rabbits in my garden area. I've never had them eat my vegetables because they can't see them. And I don't think there's a way for me to show you guys. I happen to be sitting in my garden and I have several of those cattle panel arches. And that's a great way to get cucumbers and viney things up off the ground. It frees up a lot of real estate. So that's all.
Awesome. Thank you, dear friend. She's a friend of mine.
I'm curious.
Pop it off. Go ahead, Michelle.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just curious. I know Corky had something else to add, and I was kind of hanging on the edge of my seat. Was there another comment?
Okay, real quick. It's about vertical gardening. I've bought stuff in the past, very expensive, but if you work it out, it's really economic. But I've come up with one where you take juice bottles or milk jugs and you screw them to a pallet, one on top of the other, fill them with dirt, and then you can plant right in that, and the water will run from one to the other to the bottom. And you can put another container at the bottom to save the effluent, if you want to call that. It has all the nutrients, and then you can pour it in the top again. So it's very easy. Maybe it's not the most attractive, so you can come up with something different than that.
How
Yeah,
about
you can
Purium plastic containers before were completely plastic free? Could you use
there
those?
you go. Yeah. Or so you can actually use clay pots, and you can make it decorative too. Put them one on top of the other. So that's what I was going to say.
Excellent. Well, we are at the top of the hour, which means it is time for us to close out. Thank you guys for joining us all today. Thank you for adjusting to my I did this on the fly thing. I hope that I was able to give you some really positive and useful information today. And we would love to have you back next week to join us for more of this discussion. And that's it for now. So thank you for joining us for Fierce Friday, and we'll see you next week.